Imagine if the creator of Magic the Gathering decided to make another game. And imagine if the day before that game was about to have its whole pre-release event and be launched out into the world, imagine you realized that he accidentally made it racist. Oh wait, you don't need to imagine that scenario, cause guess what? That's reality, baby. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here to talk about an interesting and hilarious scenario. Now, some of you may have heard a term being bandied about. You may have heard here or there, KeyForge. Well, what is KeyForge? And obviously we're going to need this background information to lead you down the path to get you to the hilarity. So, what is KeyForge? KeyForge is a crazy new card game created by Richard Garfield and released by Fantasy Flight Games. So I'm going to give you a description here, like flavor-wise, from the website. Enter a world where anything is possible. In KeyForge, in the center of the universe hangs the Crucible, an artificial world built from the pieces of countless planets. Here in the world's first unique deck game, created by legendary designer Richard Garfield, two players step into the roles of mighty archons, racing to forge keys that unlock the Crucible's hidden vaults. Leading their diverse teams, filled with followers from three of the Crucible's great houses, the Archons must gather Ember, stave off their opponent's progress, and ultimately be the first to open a vault and gain its incredible knowledge. With a vast array of creatures, artifacts, and abilities, and over 104 quadrillion possible decks, not quite so many now that they had to ban some of them. Every deck is completely one of a kind, and no two battles will ever be the same. So, in a world of infinite possibilities, you become an Archon, one of the only native inhabitants of the Crucible. This world was built for your kind by the mischievous and enigmatic architects, who cobbled together pieces of every planet in the galaxy, bringing with them an eclectic variety of creatures, vegetation, cultures, and technology from across the stars. Hailed by some as a god, you now seek to understand the secrets of the planet on which you live. This knowledge is held in countless hidden vaults, which you must find and unlock using keys forged of amber, a precious substance that runs throughout the Crucible. To this end, you've gathered a team drawn from three of the Crucible's 7 great houses. But you are not the only one seeking this knowledge and the power that comes with it. Rival Archons across the planet all seek the same goal. And when two Archons meet at a vault, conflict is inevitable. So, when two Archons meet in combat, you must be ready to react and learn on the fly, using every tool at your disposal to counter the tricks your rival has up their sleeves. Within each house, you will find 4 types of cards. Now, we're not going to go into more detail about the different types of cards and the gameplay, because that's not particularly important here. Now, to give you an idea roughly of the game flavor and concept for those of you who are familiar with Magic the Gathering, imagine playing a 3-color deck. Imagine buying a Magic deck and it's already pre-designed. It's 3 colors ready to go, randomly created. Now, each turn when you play, you can only choose 1 color to cast spells from, to attack with your creatures from, all of that. So if you were playing green, red, blue, each turn you would either choose green, red, or blue, and only use cards from that color. It's an interesting concept. So, I'm sure you're wondering, okay, well, what does this have to do with the whole racism naming kind of issue? Well, what sets KeyForge apart from pretty much every other game is that it's a unique game. And what I mean by that is, this deck right here that I'm holding, there is literally no identical deck to this in the entire universe. Every single KeyForge deck, with the exception of the 2 precons that they include in the starter deck, are all different from one another. Not only in the cards that are included, but they're all given their own unique card back and unique name for the deck. Every single deck. Every deck has its own unique setup. There's no drafting, there's no deck building, and there's no boosters. Every deck is complete and cannot be changed. The challenge is to use what you're given. And guys, even in terms of rares and uncommons and things like that, it's not equal distribution. Every deck does not have an equal amount of rares or anything like that. It really is completely random, which is absolutely enjoyable. Now, that isn't where you're going to run into the problem, right? That's not where you're running into the situation with like, okay, why are these Archon names causing a problem? What's this you said about racism? Give me the juicy details, boys. Well, I'll read the official company statement for you here that they just put out yesterday, like the day before the pre-release, because they realized this stuff. The release of KeyForge is just around the corner, and everyone here at Fantasy Flight Games is incredibly excited for the launch. We've seen your excitement too, and we can't wait for you to open your first Archon deck and start playing. Archon names in KeyForge are procedurally generated by an algorithm that pulls from a list that includes tens of thousands of words. The result is that every Archon name, in other words, every deck name, because your deck is named after your Archon, generated by the algorithm is unique. Regrettably, some of the words that were included in the pool created the potential for defective Archon decks with an unfortunate pairing of words. We've taken corrective measures to adjust the naming algorithm for future decks, but a small percentage of decks, including these words, which is less than 0.05% of the initial print run, so that's something like 1 out of every 2,000 decks essentially, have already reached the public. Instead of allowing these decks to persist in the KeyForge community, we've determined that the best course of action is to remove these decks from the play environment. Defective Archon decks that we have flagged for removal will not be playable in any official KeyForge organized play events. Determining whether or not your deck has been flagged for removal is very simple. When you purchase an Archon deck, please register it using the KeyForge Master Vault Companion app or online at our website. This will become available live November 15th. If you attempt to register a deck that has been flagged for removal from the play environment, you will see the following message. Oh no, there's a problem with this deck, and it's been flagged for removal from the play environment. This deck will not be registered. Please contact our customer service team at 855-382-8880. I'm giving you the phone number just because I'm reading it. I probably could have skipped that part, but it's in here now. What are you going to do? So, you're wondering, what's this registering part have to do? There's a little QR code in here that lets you register your deck, and that's if you're going to play in events, instead of using a DCI number, you have your registration of the deck itself, and they will keep a history of the deck. Now, the customer service team will verify that your deck has been flagged for removal, and then they will work with you to arrange the return of the defective deck. As a thanks for your cooperation and as compensation for your returned deck, they will provide you with 2 brand new Archon decks in exchange. Thank you very much for your understanding and continued support. So, boys, what's going on is anybody who has an offensively named deck can return the deck for 2 names. Now, we all know, or at least most of us know, that any of these banned decks are going to be worth a lot more money. People are going to want to have them. I mean, the idea of having a naughtily named deck is pretty appealing, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of fun. Now, in terms of the actual offensive names, we were not given any examples by the company. And doing a very thorough search as much as I could, going to a bunch of different sites and looking for everybody talking about this, I could not find any truly objectionable names. However, I can easily lay out a scenario for you that I think will illustrate the sort of problems we're going to run into. Now, this may not be an exact example, so understand that this is just something pulled off the top of my head from the experience that I had from going to the pre-release today, because there were individuals there who cracked their decks, and some of them had names like Havarsti, the Death Lord, or something along those lines, where it's like, okay, no problem, or whatever. One of the decks had an absolutely hilarious name. It was The Boy Who Hates Ergonomics. Is that not an obtuse and hilariously ridiculous name? Now, the problem becomes when you start to switch words around, right? And you start to mix in color words and things like that. And then you end up with, oh, I don't know, the Lord Who Hates Black Boy. Or, blah, 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 the Black Thief. And these are just off the top of my head using common occurrences that could crop up, boys. So we're dealing with a situation where we don't know exactly what the amalgamation of all these words are that came to be awful. But 1 out of every 2,000 decks is completely objectionable, which means 1 out of every 2,000 decks is a rare gem. You'll never be able to use it in a tournament environment. One of the things that's incredibly unique about the KeyForge concept are the codes that you use to scan the deck. Because what will happen, and they've actually stated this in their documentation, is that if a deck is doing really well in the play environment, that deck will start to be handicapped. There is a limit card that comes along that will diminish the amount of resources you gain access to in the game. And if your deck turns out to be very powerful, they will slowly but surely handicap it more and more until they finally ban your personal deck for being one of the 2 strongest decks in the world. It's an interesting scenario. What else are they supposed to do with these kind of things? But the fact that a game, before it was even released, had to pre-ban decks they had created themselves, this has only ever happened with this game, and it is absolutely hilarious to me. Now, I gotta wonder, boys, what do we have in here? Do I have one of those fabled decks? Do I have one of the insane name decks? Well, I guess you're going to want to stick around, because I'm going to open this for the channel, my friends. That's what we're going to do with this. And now that's being said, let's check in with that 6-color magic.